focal length on my thing the proper. It's not 50 millimeter, it's 75 millimeter because I'm using this camera. I don't care. Am I getting a good picture?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's,
Here's the.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, okay. What I was going to say is number one is that is the correct economic decision, because if you have to start from scratch, how much was that full frame camera going for?
They were the same price actually. They're both. I could get them both for about $1,200.
Oh, that's not too bad. That's not too bad at all. But obviously, if you were to get the full frame, then you would have to start accumulating new glass, and that's a lot of money. So that makes very little sense unless you had the money and you were going to make a changeover. That doesn't make any sense. So that from an economic standpoint, that's the correct decision. The other thing is that I was telling you about that guy who he shoots micro four thirds. Micro four thirds is actually smaller than the other sensor. What is it? APS-C. It's actually smaller than that. Yeah, it's actually smaller than that. There's a couple other sensors that are floating around that are slightly different size. But the thing is that the human eye is not picking that up. Now, obviously, there's going to be some changes and stuff, and a little bit of different character. But in actuality, full frame purists, they don't really have a leg to stand on, because I watched I was reading a blog about he was a wedding photographer. First of all, don't listen to wedding photographers. They're ridiculous. Yeah, but he was talking about, he was talking about picking a camera. He goes, oh yeah, he goes, I would suggest this camera. And, if you're on a tighter budget, maybe you could use this camera. But, if you're going to use a crop sensor, be up front with your bride. Be up front with your bride. Like, what? I'm freaking selling dope under the, what? I'm taking it for, she doesn't know or care. Do you get pictures? Do you get good pictures? Do you get the pictures that she likes? That's it. She doesn't give a fuck what you're shooting. Why?
First of all, with wedding photographers, your previous work should be all you need to show to get the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whatever else all the bride cares is that she's going to have good, well-made photos from her wedding.
Yep.
It would be like a bride saying, you know what? No, I don't want your damn digital photography. I want someone to take film.
Yeah, she's not going to do that. She doesn't care. See, okay, here's a good example of the end result being the most important thing. It's a bride. She doesn't care about anything except that when she's done, she's got a book with the requisite pictures, which is walking down the aisle. The kiss, that's the number. That's that's all they talk about. In fact, that's so important apparently to a wedding shoot that they actually have a name for it. It's called the kiss. You gotta get that. If you don't get that, you fucked up. So walking back down the aisle.
And then she wants pictures with the bridal party, with the entire wedding party.
Yeah, cutting the cake. All that stuff. That's what you want. If you produce that and she likes it, that's it. She doesn't care about anything. She doesn't care if you photoshopped it. She doesn't care if it's film. She doesn't care if it's digital. She doesn't care what your sensor size is or what your focal length is. That means nothing to her. The only thing that matters, and at the end, when you use her as a reference, she's not going to go, oh yeah, it was great, but he used an ASPC camera, so she's not going to do that. She's going to say one of two things: he nailed it, he fucked up. That's it. He nailed it, or he fucked up. That's all that matters. So
the only thing I would say that does matter is you have to shoot raw.
Okay, I would agree with that. I will agree with that when you're doing that kind of thing because if you're okay, hold on, wait a minute. If you're post processing, you must shoot raw. If you're shooting JPEG, you're seriously limiting your ability, your potential of what you're of what you can post process. If you're not post processing, if you're doing what's called shoot and burn, where you shoot a shitload of pictures, you go back, you maybe do some cropping, you do a little bit of cleanup, and then you burn it onto a disc and you send it to her in the mail. Okay, then then you can shoot JPEG because that's going to save you a shitload of time. But if you're processing, you must shoot.
Well, depending on what you're getting paid, I mean, if you're making $2 to $3 grand for a wedding shoot, you better be shooting raw and you better be doing some damn post processing.
That's exactly what this guy said. He said if you're getting $500 for an all day trip, okay, then you're shooting JPEG and you're doing shoot and burn. If you're getting paid $5,000 for your shoot, which is not unreasonable. If you're doing then you're shooting raw and you're spending 10 hours editing that shit and putting it together. Because there's economic constraints, sure, and then there's also some brides are just like, no, I have an idea of what I want to do. I just want the pictures. Okay, sure, yeah. Absolutely. So in which case, you're getting $500. You're getting I'm going to shoot all fucking day. I'm going to shoot a couple thousand frames. I'm going to dig through the shit, get rid of it, send you all the best stuff that I got. Maybe do a little cropping. And maybe send you some cropped and uncropped, and then you can pick what you want, and that's what you're doing, and that'll take you a couple hours of processing, and that's it. Yeah. That's reasonable. But what these people are talking about is you must have this, you must have that, you must have this, you must have that, and that's not realistic. That's not true. And not only is it not realistic, it's not true. It's a fucking lie. It's like this is what I do. And I'm the shit. And if you're not doing it, you know what it is? It's common sense photography. That's what it is. It's common sense photography. This is how you do it. If you're not doing it, you're an idiot. I'm smart. I know what I'm doing.
I mean, if you're doing it right, first of all, obviously, no bride's gonna let you set up flash umbrellas on the side of the altar. Because I mean, if you really want to do it right and get the greatest pictures you could possibly get, you would set up umbrellas.
Yeah, but you ain't doing that. No bride's gonna allow that. No.
Now the outside pictures of her wedding party, absolutely. Or wherever.
If you're a heavy, if you're a really heavy shooter, and they're like doing some like. They're in Hawaii or something like that. They fly you out. This is what I've heard from this one guy. They fly you out, and you're there all freaking week, and you're shooting rehearsals and all this shit, and freaking barbecues and all this crap, and then you're doing, lifestyle, pictures while they're at the beach and they're doing whatever they're doing. Then the wedding comes up and you're doing that, and then you're doing the reception, and then and then anything that got missed, you're going back through and doing it. So yeah, you have an ability to use custom lighting and all this stuff. The fact is that at the ceremony, you're shooting, and if you're shooting flash, you better be real smart, because if you flash those people, they're gonna let you have it. She's gonna let you have it after. They don't even want to hear you. There was when they were shooting film and they were having the auto winders. Brides were getting pissed off. Brides were getting pissed off about that, because one of the things that was happening was at the end of a roll, the camera. Some cameras won't automatically rewind, but a lot of them do. And so what happened is they hit the roll, and then all of a sudden you hear, yeah, right in the middle of the ceremony, and boy, let me tell you something, that bride let you have it afterwards, boy.
Now, in those situations, that is the place where I would say, yeah, you need to have 2 or 3 cameras with you.
Yeah.
You don't want to get to the end of a roll and go, well, you didn't get any pictures past this because I didn't want to make the noise of change of film.
Yeah, that's what they were doing, or they would have an assistant, and they would well, they first of all they made sure that they had a camera. There was a handful of cameras that were real popular because it didn't rewind until you told it to rewind. So what would happen is they would get an assistant, and he would load cameras. So what he'd do is they'd have like 2 or 3 cameras. Well, they'd have like 3 or 4 cameras, and after he shot one, he'd hand it to his assistant. His assistant would run back out into the hall and rewind that, and then reload, and then they would just like relay it, and so the only thing you heard was the guy you'd hear the auto winder winding usually, but you wouldn't hear that frickin' 2-minute rewind, and also you weren't reloading, so this guy constantly had a fresh camera that had a full roll in it, and he would just shoot it until he thought he was either it was done or until he was getting real close, and then he'd hand it off and pick up a new camera. That's how they did it. That's how at the time it made total sense. Now we don't need to do that. Now I can sit with one camera body, barring any malfunctions with my camera body. I can just go about my business with one camera body and go and do whatever I want. And if I have a really nice zoom lens, like at least for my camera, one of the ones that's really touted is the Tamron 2470. With that kind of a zoom lens, you could do an entire photo shoot with one lens and one camera body. So anyway, that's where we are now.
Because that's the other thing I've been doing research on. What do most photographers take out when they go out on? Just shooting to enjoy shooting. And there's actually something called the Holy Trinity.
Okay, good.
Generally, it
What's
starts
the Holy
with
Trinity? I got an idea, but I want to hear what the Holy Trinity is.
Generally, it basically covers a very long millimeter range, and it starts with the one you were just talking about, the 17 to 40. Or 16 to 50, somewhere in that range.
You're talking about zoom lenses? I mean, you're talking about the Holy Trinity of zoom lenses.
Of lenses, yeah.
Or primes. Or prime. Zoom or prime.
Most photographers that I read, they'll take this Holy Trinity of zoom lenses and like one prime, either 30. Generally, either a 35 or a 50.
Because real quick before I forget, Tamron just released the 2470 was their flagship, and they just released the one lens below and the one lens above, which I believe is the Holy it would be the Holy Trinity that you're talking about. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead.
Well, that's your beginning. That's the lowest of the ones that most photographers take. What they're talking about. Okay. Then you take a middle one, which is generally somewhere between a 50 to 80, 50 to 100, somewhere in that range. And then the last one you take, and this is the one everyone says the exact same numbers on it, 80 to 200.
Yeah.
And that covers. And they go, and if you get a 2 times magnifier, it'll extend you out to 400.
Yeah, so a couple of things that people
they go that will cover just about everything you could possibly want to shoot out in when you go out to just basically shoot. But a few photographers said they would take one prime, and it would usually be either 50 or 35. Your zoom lenses, they go. It usually makes it more, sometimes even double the price, but 2.8. Make sure that they'll open up 2.8.
Well, one of the things that I noticed, I got a hold of this one with another camera that didn't. Yeah, it was. I won't even go into the story, but it was a pain in the ass. But I ended up with this lens. It's got a really. It's not very fast, and I wondered. I didn't realize what was going on, but when I started shooting it, it was really dim. So you have to be if you're using like some zooms that zoom really far, will the aperture, the maximum aperture is reduced, and when you zoom out, like mine's a 35 to 210, and at the